Trollord Games. Join the fray.
Welcome to GM's Tricks of the Trade number 81. We have arrived. How's it going, D-Jor? I've got my... it's just chaos. It's mass chaos over here. I had to get 3 books uploaded to the printer today, and I got one so far. Lots of small problems, as there always are. And I was just going over some of this with Tim when I realized the stream starts in like 2 minutes. There you go, John. Yeah, so if everything crashes on me, it's because I'm uploading extraordinarily large files. This is the Starship Warden. Some of you guys may be familiar with that Kickstarter. The cover's uploaded and gone, and the other thing, the book itself is uploading now, but for some reason it's taking an extraordinarily long time, and I'm not certain why. I'm sure it will all be riddled by the end. How's it going, King Kothar? And then I'm ass deep in Memorial Tomb getting its final file done, and we've kind of made an executive decision that the appendixes, there's 4 appendixes, and those aren't going to go in the main book. Those are going to go in the box set. So, and you won't be able to get the main book without the box set, so that's just the way that's going to play out. We can only do what we can do. How's it going, Effie? And then on top of that is the Monsters and Treasures of Erin, and we got one tiny little problem, and I'm going to have to fix right after this stream and get with Peter Bradley. So, just the normal kind of stuff that goes with too many things going on simultaneously. And it, at this very instant, hacking my lung out, otherwise enjoying this warm, thirsty afternoon. Well, there you go. You got 2 lungs, so you should be good on that. Yeah, I don't know. It's absolutely nuts. It's a good nuts, though. What are we doing? What are we doing today? We're doing players' tricks. That's right. We're doing the players. Going over my notes right now. Normally I take a few minutes and look see what we're discussing today. Oh yes, the abilities. Yeah. And then role play. What is this last thing here? Either way you do it. Yeah, there you go. All right. How's it going, Willie? Looking forward to your Trolls-a-thon next week. Yeah, so what Willie is making a reference to, we're doing a whole lot of shows next week. So I want everyone to join us if you can. We're going to do one Monday. I think it's, my times are going to be messed up, but it's like 6 to 8. We're going to be discussing movies and TV shows and all of that mess that goes with this genre. And then on Tuesday, we're doing Ask Me Anything at the regular time. And then at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, we're doing a discussion with me and Matt Golden and Todd Gray and you guys, where we talk about the original characters that went into the world of Erin, Aristobulus and Luther and all of those knuckleheads. And then on Wednesday, Tim's coming down. We're doing a World Anvil thing. And then on Thursday, we're doing an extended GM's Tricks of the Trade. And then on Friday, I'm going to be running a game. So, and I think there's something else on Friday. I can't remember. Something. We got a lot of stuff going on, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Isn't every show basically a movie show on this channel? Yeah, just about. So frustrated with Subaru dealer on hold wanting to listen to you, but trying to schedule a recall. Yeah, good luck with that. This whole recall thing. What time would you like to be called? I just don't like it. I don't like it. I will say this. Some of these places will now communicate via text, and I think I like that better than whatever. I want to play a Kinder Wild Mage. Not for you, Peter. Peter, what is going on with the letter K in the Monsters and Treasures of Erin? I know we've got some images. I'm going to have to find those images and get them to you. I'm not sure what happened with the letter K, but we need to get that fixed ASAP. Oh, good. All right. Good. That's one thing off my desk that I don't have to worry about. When you said that yesterday, I think, I went and looked, I was like, what the hell? What happened to Kay? I don't know. All right. Good, because they need them by Monday. So, yeah, it's just the art. All the art disappeared. We don't know. I don't know. I created one of the new monsters I created was a K, and I don't think it has a picture with it, but there you go. Finally saw 13th Warrior, by the way. That's a fantastic movie. Vic Danger. I absolutely love 13th Warrior. Gather up the K's for Monday. Yeah, I don't know. It's just been crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I'm supposed to be writing tomorrow. I'm going to be off to another part of the state where I'm going to hunker down and do a lot of writing for the weekend. So I had kind of cleared tomorrow for that. I think I finished the Runes of Entropy. So there's only 16. I wanted 20, but the last 4 concepts I love the concepts, but I can't quite convert them to game terms. So I'm going to take that and kind of crack that nut, and then I got to write the section on the cloak, the red cloak of the red god, the cloak of red. That's got to be written up too for gods and monsters of red. There's just so much goobly goop going on around here. I see Friday 6 to 7 books, recollection, etc. 7 to 9 gaming with Steve. Okay, yeah. So we're doing 2. So we're doing 2 on Friday. Good deal. Yeah, so it's a lot of shows next week. Definitely come in and join them. And like you all know, it's really just going to be jibber jabbering for for a couple hours. If they're entropic, do they matter anyway? The number certainly doesn't. I just wanted a round number. Is 20 a round number? I don't know anything about numbers. I've been reading and watching a lot of videos on entropy. It's a fascinating subject. It's very fascinating. How's it going, Retro? All right, but we are here today for GM's Tricks of the Trade number 81. Players' tricks to help with the GM. So we're going to do a number of these. We've done one before, but it's one of the things that I kind of want to explore somewhat. GM's Tricks of the Trade is really great. It's a great concept, blah, blah, blah. We all can get together and have this conversation, but players are an integral part of the table and the game, so it'd be kind of cool to put some stuff out there for players to actually help the game move forward, and just things like the whole 9 yards. It probably is worth exploring actually doing a completely separate show on how to play RPGs. So that might be something we're talking about doing in the near future. And speaking of which, so next week's GM's Tricks of the Trade is actually, we're going to discuss on how to play a role-playing game. We're going to do a series of those, and it's to help new people kind of to jump in. So it'll be great here to kind of at least cut the teeth on it, see what's going on, even though we have a lot of experienced gamers up in here. Everyone else, it's the G spot. Steve, it's K spot. Yeah, it's the K spot. What happened to the K? Yeah, I hear you, Peter. Cast invisibility on a set of bow and arrows, the ultimate stealth shot. There's a tip. There you go. 20 is a round number. There. See, we are now informed. How's it going, Lord Gazumba? So I want to point out this image before we dive into it. This image that you see over player tricks player tricks to help GMs. It doesn't say GMs at all. It just says GM. To help Jim. I'm not sure who Jim is. Player tricks to help Jim. So not sure what that's about. Let's see if we can't fix that real quick. Save that. I don't know if it's going to update it immediately. I think that it does. And we're all going to learn something here in just a second. Save that, save that, save that. Boom. It did it. Look at that. That's beautiful. So this is an image from not Hansel and Gretel, but from Gretel and Hansel. There's the Hansel and Gretel movie, which is kind of a shoot 'em up, Die Hard type fantasy movie, and then there's the Gretel and Hansel movie that came out I think last year. It's very, I don't know. It's got it's very epic in its cinematography. I mean, it's just moody and slow, and the witch in it is something else. I mean, it's the best portrayal I think I've seen of a witch in TV and whatnot. So this is the younger version of the witch from Gretel and Hansel. If you haven't seen the movie, I recommend you do. It's very good, very moody, but it is slow, so don't jump. It's not going to have a bunch of gunfire and explosions and nuclear weapons going off, but it's exceptionally good, and this young actress here does a absolutely fantastic job, and the older actress who plays the older version of the witch does a fantastic job. It's a great movie. Just go watch it. I boiled down Gary Gygax stuff in his role-playing master and have it as a 12 bullet points on the player side of my screen. There you go. That's just a good idea. Bugs Bunny, there you go. How's it going, Real Long Shot? Hey, Lord Dailies. All right, so let's dive into this mess that we're discussing today. Just ways, we always talk about, everybody kind of knows that the GM is running the game. They adjudicate, they set the story, they create the thematic elements and the plots and all of that stuff, and the characters kind of weave their way through that. And that's not entirely true, because the GM, though they start that, the GM is going to actually engage with players, and players are going to do things that encourage the GM to go this direction, or teach the GM to do this or to do that, or for this particular group or whatever. And they certainly can mold games and all this business. So players have an integral part to the playing process and to the game itself. That's not to say that the GM's not in charge. Of course, the GM's in charge. I'm one of those that believe this isn't kind of a what do they call that, where everybody sits around and just kind of live action whatever. Not live action role play, but whatever it is. I don't know my theater terms, but. So the GM's in charge, but there's quite a few things that players can do to hurt a game and to help a game, and that's what we're diving in today with players, ways players can help the GM. And as always, if you haven't, please give us a follow. We sure do appreciate it. We love it when you guys come out and join us in these streams. And if you have any commentary on what we're jabbering about today, or anything else really, put it in the stream there, and we will address it as best we can, whatever that means. I don't know, but yeah, we love to hear from you guys. It's always great ideas come out of the stream here. So without further ado, let's dive right in. It's at one end of teleport. Oh, there we go. Peter's giving us lots of player tips right now. Peter Bradley, that's at Ravenchild Art. Here is our main artist. He does mountains of art and lots of layout and maps, all kinds of stuff. He also plays a very good illusionist, which is pretty rare. Improv, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's not an improv night, a little bit, I guess, but GM's still in charge. What's with witches having blackened fingers? Agnes on WandaVision had the same makeup. I haven't seen WandaVision yet, but I think they stole it from the World of Air, because that's magic users, their fingers darken in the World of Air. Anyone who uses magic, their fingers, arcane magic, their fingers darken over time, and their hands and whatnot, so that you can tell, unless they've cast some kind of cantrip to cover this, you can tell a very experienced wizard by their fingers in the World of Air. This is kind of an affectation that I really like. It really worked here in the movie. She's very creepy, and that just kind of played into it. There's a lot of stuff that has to do with food and illusions of food, and because obviously the witch wants to eat children. I mean, that's kind of the underlying thing, the theme, right? So all of that ties in. You'll see when you watch it, with this one in particular, it all kinds of ties into the whole thing that she's doing. It's very, very cool. Very, very good stuff. A shared hallucination. There you did I miss something? What's a... There you go. Out dim spot. I like GM as the visionary. Not RP by comedy, but each their own. I like GM as the visionary, I'm not sure what that means. Lucid Macabre? That's got me a little stumped, but yeah, at any rate, yeah, let's dive into this first one. GM's running the table, but there's things players can do. And the very first thing that a player can do, and it's the easiest thing to do, I say that, is pick a name that fits. Talk to the GM that's running the game, and pick a name that fits the genre, the feeling, the whatever else that's going on. I too often have run into characters whose names are things like hold on. Sorry. It's just lots going on, as I discussed earlier. Too often players show up and they don't have a name, so they just pick one. And I think I used in the example, like Jerry or Jeff or whatever. And Bob, whatever it is, Pam, Sally, and these types of names can wreck a mood in a heartbeat. They're not really... It sounds kind of funny in the service, but if you're playing it, it can really derail a GM. And the same goes for names like when it's just a string of consonants that have no, sense to be together, fakalakabalukaboo or whatever it is. Yeah. These names should be avoided. And showing up at the table and knowing that you're not going to name one of your characters that something silly like that is fine. Now, with that said, coming up with names can be very difficult if you don't have access to a book of names or whatever. Of course, on the internet, you should be able to find stuff relatively easy. But you can actually take most names, and in the example here I use Jeffrey. You can take the proper form of a name, Jeff. The proper form is Jeffrey, and you can even use the medievalized version of it, Geoffrey. And now you've got a character. You went from a Jeff sitting at the table, which is a great name. One of my best friends is named Jeff, but you went from Jeff to Geoffrey. Suddenly it fits. The same thing for Sally. I think I looked up, and the root that Sally is a nickname for Salome. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. But suddenly you went from something that doesn't fit to something that does fit. And just avoid the string of consonants entirely. Just stop that. Make a cool name, come up with it, roll with it, and you'll be surprised at how pleased the GM is because they can just play and they don't have to worry about Bob wandering around in a medieval French village or something like that. It just doesn't fit, so just don't do it. Names like Bob Smith only work if you have the John Carter backstory and quickly pick up an inverse title. Yeah, they sort of work. You got to be so careful. John Carter, of course, echoes, but even a John Carter like if you were to play in Davis's world in Zaya, any name like Bob Smith or John Carter, it's just not going to fit. So unless, like you said, unless you've got some kind of huge backstory that explains that, why you're going to be Stephen, at the table, just avoid it. Come up with a cool name. You can word search it anywhere. If you can get a copy of The Extraordinary Book of Names by Gary Gygax that we publish, it's a fantastic resource. Hard to get a hold of these days, but so just pick a name that Eric the Cleric. Pick a name not like Eric the Cleric. Lord, a gnome illusionist. Eric the Cleric, the gnome illusionist. There you go. Held a message for reason, identity, allow, we'll post it to chat. Oh, I don't know what that means. I asked a player their name. They said, I haven't thought of one yet. So I said, okay, have something great. Okay, well, I guess it's doing something to you there. Eat to serve. I'm not sure what that means. Geoffrey's my middle name, and you would be surprised how many times in my life I pronounce it totally wrong. Yeah, I never knew that Jeffrey could be pronounced Geoffrey until I watched the original Lion in the Winter. And that's when Henry II's, his third son is Geoffrey. And that's how they pronounce it in the movie. And that may be a French pronunciation, I really don't know. But it fits. It breaks with the tie of modernity and fits with the old, which works pretty well. But that's a pretty cool middle name there, David. For my first character, I stole from a Star Trek alien the half-elf fighter magic user Thelev. See, now Thelev works if you're not familiar with Star Trek. See, my first characters were named after Tarzan characters. Tarzan, his son, Korak, and some of the apes and so forth and down the line, until Davis made me quit. Funny you say that. I bought an old AD&D box set at a rummage sale and found a positively ancient character sheet in there with a Categoval dwarf assassin with an 18 strength, presumably rolled, named Max Flex. Yeah. Yeah, they played the same then as we do now. There's a mystique about the old world, but it's the same stuff. That's funny. And don't be pissed when they take your long string of consonants and give it a nickname that sticks. Yes, absolutely. That's what's going to happen. If you come up with a really stupid name or something that's incomprehensible or unpronounceable by anyone except you at the table when you're sober or whatever, they're going to change it. It's not going to stick. Just come up with a name that fits the genre, fits the milieu, fits the feel and theme of the game, and stick with it. It's not that hard. Well, it can be. I know coming up with a name can be very frustrating. but there are lots of indexes online. You can search in, Finnish name. You can search in Hungarian name, whatever. And a whole bunch of stuff is going to come up. So definitely do that if you can. How's it going, Chad Skiles? Hadn't seen you in a while. Thanks for joining us. Good to have you back. So pick the name. Go with the name. Pick something good. What did I say? Now you have a name that fits a fantasy environment that is not either a jumble of meaningless letters nor someone who sat behind you in homeroom in Miss Parker's class back in the 2nd grade. Yeah, so pick a good name. So on to trick of the trade number 2. I really need a Dr. Pepper. Hold on a second. I gotta get some. All right. Backgrounds. I rip off names from Magic the Gathering cards. There you go. It's the Silmarillion. If you've got a copy of the Silmarillion, for heaven's sake, just open it, go to the index at the back. It's filled with gajillions of names. That's a good one. There's a lot of resources for names. I bring Max Flex in every now and then, and have a laugh knowing some guy in his mid-50s who probably works as an accountant and hasn't rolled a die in decades has no idea I've pilfered his childhood imagination. That's probably truer than you realize. Back in those days, in the late 70s, Dungeons & Dragons didn't have the connotation of being a nerd game or whatever, geek game or whatever it has, or developed whatever. It was just a game. It was just a game like Pictionary. It was like any other game, and it's amazing to me how many people played it in the late 70s, early 80s, and then never went back to it. Played a few times, and never went back to it. I think I played Pictionary once in my entire life. It's not a bad game. It's just I've only played it once. So there's a lot of people my age and a little older that have actually played Dungeons & Dragons, but don't really... There's no connection. There's no connective tissue there, like there is for so many of us. I use a lot of Gaelic and Welsh names, and they just sound ancient, and absolutely, that's perfect. Old German names are great for it. And if you wanted a little bit more mysterious, Egyptian names are great. There's just a plethora of names out there, and there's lots of resources online to check it out. I use online translators to come up with cool names. All names mean something. They just sound awesome in foreign languages. That's the key. That's actually the key right there. If you're actually a Hungarian playing Castles and Crusades with your Hungarian friends, you probably want to use an English name because it sounds cooler than just, because, whatever Fred Smith in Hungarian is Fred Smith in Hungarian. So definitely wander out of your own linguistic pool. There's also The Languages of Middle-earth by Ruth S. Noel. My go-to naming research is a great one there. Bob the 12th, yeah. It's funny. Yeah, there's too much of that. I wish I had Hungarian friends. There you go. Isn't Melkor? Someone's from Hungary. I can't remember. Sterling the Archer. It's a good TV show if you haven't seen it. So on to the next one. Just Hungarian. On to the next one. Backgrounds. So this is another thing that players can do. They can kind of back off the backgrounds a little bit. Too often players will show up with 4, 5, 6 pages of history and background and all of the stuff that they've got with their player. And that is cool. You can't, as a GM, you can't ask for more, right? You've got someone super excited about their character. They're super excited about the game. They're super excited about playing and all of these things. So they're at the table 125%, and that is fantastic. However, when you show up with a thing like that, you kind of inadvertently influence the GM. You shift the GM so that they don't really know. They're not going to feel super comfortable about killing the character. They may tailor their game a little bit to fit your background, or they may have to tailor it a lot to make the background fit, or they're not going to want to do any of those things, and they're going to reject your background. So it's best to wait, have the ideas stewing in your head, things that you want to do. Wait, play the game 1, 2, or 3 times to get a tone, figure out where your the adventures are taking place, what kind of world it is, what kind of campaign it's going to be, and then begin to flesh your background out and do it in a little bit in conjunction with the GM, so that the two of you guys can kind of make sure it doesn't go off track one way or the other. There may be nuances to the setting that you aren't aware of. There's all kinds of stuff that could cause an issue with the GM. So it's best to wait. Wait until you've played a few games, and then go hog wild. You've survived to second level, or whatever it is you've survived. Got 500 experience points, and then go hog wild in the event into your background and flesh it all out. Because it is literally a great thing to know when you're running a game, and you guys know this. Those of you who run games frequently. When players are enthusiastic about their characters, it makes the world a difference. It just makes a world of difference in what you're doing because they're excited. They're excited to play the game and get into whatever the hell it is that you're going to be throwing at them. So it's good all the way around. About third game, Katie bar the door. Just start making them. Make your background. Not to be pedantic, but Hungarians speak Magyar. That is true. They do speak Magyar. So they don't speak Hungarian, but so that would be even more confusing. But still, the point is, Fred Smith in Magyar is the same. Conveniently misspelled biblical names like Cain, Abel, Noah, Abraham, Solomon. Yeah, those are great right there. Those are great names. What you've basically done is you've eradicated its connection with the modern world, with Jerry, and now you've got your name. A bit late to the party. How's it going, Darklight? It makes a world of difference. It makes a world. There you go. It's true though. It's true. Get into your background, do it, but give the GM a little bit of time to make it all come to fruition. So the next one, the third. So real quick, if you're new to the stream, please give us a follow. We sure appreciate it. I'm Steven Chenault, CEO of Trollard Games. We do GM's Tricks of the Trade every Thursday. Astoundingly, we're on the third trick of the trade. It's a small miracle. We do 5 every week. So normally it takes, we get to the last 3 in the last 10 minutes of the show. But anyways, if you're here just joining us, give us a follow and join in the conversation over here. And we love to hear from everybody. Know where your hometown is on the map. There you go. Well, I'm glad you're back, Darklight. It's very cool to have you here. Thank you, Sarcasm. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Something happened. All right. At any rate, so on to the third trick of the trade. Having a goal. So this one, in some regards, is beyond important. And by a goal, let's just define that first. A character that is just kind of listless and just sitting there waiting for a player who's kind of listless, sitting there and waiting for the GM to tell them what happens so that they can react and move through it and so forth and so on is good. But the problem is you're just kind of waiting. You're kind of waiting for someone to tell you you're like watching a movie, an interactive movie or something. Oh, what is the one, Rocky Horror Picture Show? You're just kind of waiting for the cues to do something. But if you will take a little bit of time and give your characters some kind of overarching goal that they want, something that they're working towards, and it does not have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be bring back this god from the ancient days or whatever. It can be as simple as I'm going to loot and pillage. That's my goal. And if you stick with that, at least until you decide to change that goal, that actually is a huge amount of fuel for the GM to use. Now they know you want to do X. So to get to X, they can start bringing in other story elements to help propel the whole thing forward. Not having a goal, not having any kind of drive to interact with the setting itself other than to react to what's going on is actually, it makes GMing a little bit more difficult. It doesn't make it impossible, of course. Even inexperienced GMs can just keep coming up with adventures, blah, 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 blah. But when you create a goal, when you have something, you're actually telling the GM that you're actively participating in the setting. You've got a vested interest in your character, and you're working towards something. And I will guarantee you 15 out of 20 times, or whatever stat you want, that GM is going to start bringing more and more story elements into it. You're going to shape that story that the GM was telling because they're going to shape it to you. It's a natural thing that GMs do. Even if we don't want to, it's kind of a natural thing to do because you're going to do X. So we invariably begin to shape our adventures around that. And that's a good thing. And the goals need not be so... they don't all have to... You got 4 or 5 players. They don't all have to be in sync. Having 5 players with different kind of interests and places they're going doesn't mean they can't work together for a variety of things. And the more clever GMs will start weaving all of these things together into an overarching campaign. It just gives... It's really... all that is, a character goal, player goal, however you want to put it, is just fuel for the GM's fire. It's really something you want to do. Let's see, what did I miss here? Turn Fred Smith into Frederick the Smith. Very middle. Frederick is much better. Much better. And the Smith he's a Smith. Having a goal seems even harder for players than backstory. It is very hard for some. Some immediately will develop a goal and they go with it. But some cannot. So you shouldn't, to switch gears as a GM, you shouldn't give them goals necessarily. They might have objectives. This is the objective for tonight's game, or this is the objective for the next 6 games. We're going to clean out G1, the hill giant thing. But you can't really give them. You want to be the king. You can't really do that. So you got to somehow encourage your players to develop these interests beyond your story arc. And sometimes it's not easy, and sometimes you can't do it. I've had players that sat at my table for over a decade, never developed any kind of goal or any structure towards where they want. They just went where the other players went. And that's fine, but if you want to help the GM out, give yourself a goal. Yeah, for my goal, I need the Cloak of Red, but I don't wear it until you meet. I don't know what that last part is, Bit Pumpkin. Yeah, you got a babble there. But, so Bit Pumpkin there is in that's my son. He's in one of the games. And they are seeking the Cloak of Red. And it's a good example because when they shifted gears from just kind of doing these adventures to questing for this thing, suddenly I had an entire context to build and flesh out. And it helps kind of drive the game forward. So encouraging your players to have some kind of goal, or if you're a player, develop some type of goal to encourage your GM to do this, that, and the other. It's just a good thing to do. Yep, a purpose. Any kind of purpose in any kind of life is a good thing. Some people don't have it, and that's fine, whatever. But having a purpose will play out well in the end. Remember that your goals can either be attainable or metaphysical and near unattainable. If they are attainable, you should have a character that is highly motivated, driven, and who can easily take on new goals like Conan or Tarzan. And that's a good point, actually. That brings me into a corollary point. King Coder's dead on right there. But the goals don't have to be this goal until my character dies. You can change your goals. You can change your wants and desires. I'm tired of this quest. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to look for these cloaks of red thing. I'm not doing it. I'm going to go look for a purple sword. Whatever it is, you can certainly change mid-stride. It doesn't matter. Just giving yourself some kind of something to latch on to. It's good for the player. It'll help drive the player, but it also help the GM run the game somewhat. Wait a minute, did you just watch Seth Skarkwow's video on PCs before scripting the stream? I did not. I do not know who that is. Is he doing a trick of the trade or something? That's funny. What player doesn't read and reread the treasure tables? Drop a few hints. Yeah, there you go. See, now that's another way to help them give a goal. Let them know what kind of magic is there. What's going on? This witch in this picture next, there's witches around, and they have X, Y, and Z. So you can actually help kind of fuel that somewhat. But as a player, it's always a good idea to kind of reach out somewhat. Don't read that. Read Gary Gygax's role-playing master. What are we doing today, Brain? Ruling the world. Yeah, there you go. Oh, didn't read that. There you go. Seth Skorkowski is great. His stories about some of his game sessions are hilarious. I'll have to check it out. Is he on YouTube, I take it? What was the name of the realtor from his cyberpunk game? The goal can be tossing the one ring into the fires of Mount Doom, or simply pilfering enough in glittering gems to afford your way to the next city when you conveniently aren't a wanted criminal. That's it. It doesn't have to be something that's, pie in the sky. It can be something that's relatively grounded. And in fact, when you're a low-level character, you probably should ground that goal somewhat. Getting too lofty of a goal could get problematic and frustrating as 10 levels go, and 2 years of game time pass before you get in close to it. But it definitely change if you need to. So survive is a good My goal is to live. If you're ever playing Davis's game, that is a fair goal. Just staying alive can be your goal. Maslow's hierarchy of needs until they feel safe, they can't find their purpose. Oh, no, that's interesting. Oh, shucks. You can be a king in mind games, but you can actually carve out a kingdom and hold it. That's the thing. I mean, you can if you the way, depending on how you've structured your settings. These things are possible, and especially with Magic and the power that characters start wielding after a while. Especially in games like Castles and Crusades, we actually develop rules where as you gain levels, you can gain followers and blah, 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 and carve your own kingdom out. Though I will say that Bit Pumpkin there tried to declare himself emperor so he would suddenly get paid all of the money that emperors get in taxes. I told him it didn't work that way, so it was a clever attempt at squeezing some money out of the GM. Oh, you can be a king. As it seems most players live, I've played with can't seem to come up with their own goals. They just wait for the next plot hook. My old party, in a way, the new party is a bit better about it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Dark Light. And after a while, it makes GMing actually kind of tough. It gets harder and harder as you're just coming up with the same kind of plots. If you're there 10th or 15th level, it starts getting a little bit redundant, and it's hard to kind of come up with something that fires people up and interests them and all that other stuff. So having some kind of goal is just, if you're a player, just get something, and give it to the GM. You're going to fuel that fire, trust me. Quickie quests posted in the Adventurers Guild wall, escort guests, ingredient guests. Yeah, they can be as simple as that. There's so many small things that you can do. These are my goals today. I want to become known to the nobility, whatever it is. It's in the cloak of red, in the bag of green, and locked up in the box of purple. Maybe. It was actually breathed upon by the dragon Frafnarg and disintegrated. But because it's the spirit of Mordias, it wasn't destroyed, so pieces of it were scattered across the world of Erd. And they have decided that they're going to gather these pieces together and bring the Cloak of Red back and bring Mordias, whose spirit it is, back to the world of Erd. It's a very cool campaign. Character development in movies is all about change. And it can be that you can do the exact same thing at a role-playing game, in any role-playing game. That's a great point. Eat to surf. Man, this camera's driving me crazy. I think it's because I keep going up and down. These ideas are basic to storytelling, acting, and have been around since early humans gathered around campfires after the hunt, and they're important and fun. Yeah, and that's the thing. And at the end of the day, we are storytelling, and the players are storytelling too. If they turn the whole thing over to just the GM, it's going to run the risk of getting a little stagnant and not really go anywhere and just kind of do the same stuff over and over again, and everybody's going to get bored. How's it going, Canadian Ancient Gamer? I'm reading one series where the main hero's goal is to wander around and find new and interesting ways to cook rare monsters. There you go. That was not my plan. I need to prove Pete right. It almost worked. You'd have been better off staging a heist in the Royal Vault without players interacting. It gets to be like writing fiction, and the DM doesn't need the players for that. That's a great way of putting it. Eat to serve, an absolutely fantastic way. And sometimes it's the GM's for GM. It starts to feel that way, that you're just sitting there telling a story that people get to roll dice in, and that's not cool. It's hard and it's exhausting, and it kind of takes away the purpose of actually playing the game. So goal development is critical. Have you ever had your players develop the village or town they come from with a shared understanding that you'll populate the majority of NPC and other details? They choose a few buildings and NPC familiarities to the PCs plus any direct family friends. Yeah, that's actually how, interestingly, that's how the big game, what we call the big game, that led into the creation of the world of Erd, which we'll actually be sitting down and discussing with some of the players in the big game next Tuesday. That's actually sort of what started that. One of them pulled at third level, maybe fourth, pulled the card from the deck of many things that lets you get a keep. So they got this keep in a stall. It was all run down. There was 2 villages there, and came with the title of Baron. So Luther becomes a Baron there, and we detailed villages and whatnot, and they detailed some, and I detailed some. And we fleshed it all out, and suddenly that kind of launched this entire campaign of building the barony of a stall, of making it not this kind of broken, mangled thing, this old, ruined barony into something. And it eventually leads to Aufstrag, to the very doors of Aufstrag. So, but they had goals. They had things that they were working towards. There's always something. Character development is great, but sometimes it is difficult to build stuff in as a GM to whatever campaign you have planned out. Always nice when you can get players that will work with you. Yeah, that helps. And you're right. Sometimes it's just not going to work. But I think from the player's perspective, if someone shows up and they're excited about doing X, most GMs are going to want to kind of cater to that because they need that fuel to help feed the game that they're playing. It's very often more of a give and take, I think, than people realize. And that's not to say say that the GM isn't in charge or the GM isn't running the game or adjudicating or whatever it is. They certainly still are, but there certainly is this level of feeding that kind of creative frenzy. There can be room for listless characters, but if done poorly, it gets old real fast. Yes, real fast. The character would still need to be willing to engage in opportunities and plot hooks. Additionally, the game would collapse under the weight of two listless characters. It's kind of like monsters characters. For me, there can be one in a party for any of these character types. That's listless characters. Actually, if you get over half of your players are listless, you're going nowhere. You might as well kill it because it gets exhausting. Yeah, absolutely, and that's the whole thing. Try to encourage them to have something, and you can seed that as a GM. Now, see, I'm shifting because we're supposed to be talking about what players are doing, but as a GM, you can seed that. You can actually say you're a wizard. Knowledge might be the thing that you're seeking for, and a lot of people don't care. They just want to play. They don't really want to build all that stuff. So you feed that a little bit, and then they go with it. I love players world building from their backstories. It's a great way to do it. And that's, we talked about backstories before. And the nice thing is, once they've got a good name and once they've survived 3 or 4 games and they begin to build these backstories, it weaves into the story beautifully. Or it can. And the GMs can do that. We did that with Bit Pumpkins. His backstory of he was a gnome in a village, got accused of the death of someone and had fled it. Well, 7-8 games later, that's just this kind of echo of a backstory. 7 or 8 games later, they ended up in that town, and it came into play. So it's one of those things that backstories, goals, all of these things just help flesh the character out enough to feed the DM, to feed the game, what's going on at the table. I love the idea, but have had a zero success at getting uptake of players. What idea? Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and a lot of times there are players that just don't want to do it. And you can't force them, obviously. You can't say you must have a goal. It's like your parents yelling at you, what are you going to do when you get out of college? So, yeah, you gotta cater that to a little bit. All right, so I usually have one player that gets close, but it rarely that they take the push and develop their own location. Many leave the backstory blank. Yeah, it's the nature of the business. But if they'll have something that they'll do, that helps a little bit. So on to number 4. So this is just kind of an interesting side note to many, many games that I've played. I know that they're going to play these 5 different types of characters, and there's these 2 races in there. So when I'm developing it, I kind of come up with a scenario in which they're going to need a ranger, they're going to need a magic user, whatever. It's not, and nothing's written in stone, nothing's set down. But it's there in my head, it's there in the planning stages. And if the players show up, they don't actually know what their characters can do, or they know, worse, they know and they don't do it. It's very derailing. It can really mess things up because you might find yourself building something, an encounter based on a player's ability to use their character's ability to do X, and they don't ever do it, and it wrecks the encounter. So know your abilities, read them, study them, know them, and use them. Use them constantly. Push the envelope. Absolutely push the envelope when they can be used, so that the worst that can happen is the GM says, no, you can't do that. But try it, because then that ability comes into play and can help the GM manage their encounters, manage the flow of information, manage whatever it is that they're trying to get from one side of the screen to the other much, much better. Know your abilities. What was your opinion of the amnesiac character? I was given that as a GM once from a player. Amnesiac. Oh, and they expected me to take it from there. On the one hand, it was kind of nice being able to integrate it to whatever level I wanted, but on the other, I was pretty annoyed I had to do all the work. Yeah, I don't like any of that. When I'm running a game, I don't want any of that. I don't like to take ownership of characters. In my early days as a GM, You see how I slipped back into that. In my early days when I was running AD&D, I would frequently kind of take over motivations for players, for their characters, and give them goals and give them all of this structure, give them the background. And it never went as well as I would want it to, because everyone's going to sit down and everybody has their own interests, their own things that they like and things that they don't like. And if you sit down there and kind of say, okay, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't really like, X or Z, then you've got someone playing a character that they don't particularly care for. So I try to avoid anything like that. If you have amnesia if your character has amnesia, go see a cleric. They'll do a cure disease and fix it for you and move on. Something like that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I can, and that comes from experience setting up people's characters and then 5-6 years later playing the same characters, and they're just not that interested because they never were interested in the goals that I gave them or the structure that I gave them, and it's not their character. It's kind of half mine. So I don't do any of that. I try to do absolutely nothing on those things. Sometimes you have to, of course, you have to flesh out this village or this whatever, a nobility or whatever. But I try to avoid that. I know my current group has been hesitant on a couple of occasions over the past 10 sessions. They've apologized because they don't. They thought they had ruined my plans if they only knew. Yeah, I mean that's the thing with it. And I feel for you, man, because you really want someone at the table, at least one person at the table helping to drive that impetus of the game. But too often it doesn't happen. Hey, did we do the giveaway? I think we did a giveaway. I'm not sure what's going on. Tim, did we do the giveaway? Yeah, we did. Okay, the giveaway has happened. Reaping Bones, there you go. That's a hard little adventure to hack your way through. So thank you all for showing up today. Enjoy your free module there. Use them always. Let's see. I always tell players they can give me a background for their character, but a couple paragraphs at the most. One person gave me 7 pages, which was slightly excessive. Some people give me a background, some don't. Bonus XP for a character background. The bonus is higher if the background is actionable. Oh, that's cool. That's a good idea. And that I can weave it into the campaign world, completely derailing everything else. That's I've never actually given experience points for backgrounds. I have had players show up with extraordinarily long backgrounds that I now have to figure out what's going on, and how to weave this basket of mess into the game that I've already kind of pictured. Now I'm relatively fortunate that the people I play with now, they were part of the creation of the world of Air, so they know the setting and they know my, when I get irritated and whatnot, names are one of the things that will send me off in a blink. I will kill her. I can't remember. I think it was Jeremy. Todd showed up, a wizard playing Jeremy, and I killed him instantly. And then he kind of got sarcastic and made another character, and it was another combination. I killed him instantly. It was really, that was back in my rough days when I was a son of a bitch as a GM. Don't you mean if you're playing Castles and Crusades, yeah, you are a CK, the Castle Keeper. But today we gotta be neutral. And I played AD&D from its outset back in the 70s up until Castles and Crusades came out in 2004. So I frequently just slip back into DM. I wish they had put the word Dungeon Master and DM into the open gaming license so we could have just used it. It's caused years of confusion in my tiny, tiny little brain. Not really in the spirit of playing the game either, to be honest. Yeah, no, it's not. Is there a fix amnesia spell? It wouldn't cure disease? I mean, I don't know what kind. I'm one of those people who don't really believe amnesia exists. I know it does, but I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. But wouldn't cure disease fix that? I don't know if it's a disease or a condition. Would it heal? I have no idea. It's easier to weave a whole adventure from character backgrounds. At least I find it. Yes, it is. If characters bring good backgrounds to the table, you can do all kinds of stuff on it. Tim, the code is not working, someone said. Let's see. I found that for some players, a new character is a foreign country. It takes a session or two before they get a sense of who the character is and develop a personality, history, and motivations. That's absolutely right. And that's actually what you should definitely encourage them to do. Don't come in full guns blazing at first level because, one, you might die. You're just going to get very frustrated. You might die 3 or 4 times. And it's just going to make you angry as you've created all of this stuff. Play it. Get a feel of the game, a feel of the way the GM's going to run the game, a feel of the names, the terrain, the language, armor, weapons, culture, dress, all of it, and then begin to flesh your character out so that it fits. And you can nudge a little bit. Any gym's going to let you nudge a little bit, but something that fits, it'll go much, much better. And do you ever run a game? Thanks, Lord Daly. It's a good show today. Do you ever run a game where just no one bothers with backgrounds? How important are they? I have before. Like I said, I'm fortunate. I've been gaming with the same guy since the mid '80s. We all know how each other games, and it works really, really well. That said, back in the '80s when I was really kind of cutting my teeth on GMing, I started running games in about 81, something like that. And there's a lot of looking back. There's all kinds of stuff I did that I shouldn't have done. And I ran a lot of games in those days where they just made characters and they ran. I don't care about any of that. They just ran it. And I think that's really where I learned to wait until their second and third level to encourage them to develop this stuff. I actually will actively discourage a heavy background, all of this stuff until you've played at least one game. Minimally. I can't count the number of times. I mean, it is huge where a player sits down. We're playing a first level game. We're starting something new, and they play it. And the next week, we're going to sit down and play the same game. And the player says, "I don't want to play that character. I'm the worst of all. I always think I want to play magic users, and I'll make them, and I never want to play them. I want to play one game session, maybe two, and then I'm bored. I'm just bored. So I want a sword. And I want to cleave something." So you get that frequently. And, we've talked about this before. As a GM, from the GM's perspective, if you have people sitting at the table, and if you have most of them at the table don't want to do backgrounds and whatnot, it might be the time to mention what I think Lord Daly said, where you award them for backgrounds, where they get something out of creating something for their character to help you create the game. Experience points is obviously the most notable thing, but you can also do things like, and this I learned early on with the Wilderness Survival Guide. Develop their background in a way that's crazy helpful. Encourage them to develop their background in a way that's crazy helpful to the game and to their character. So, for instance, you can easily say, you can't swim this river unless something in your background tells you. Where did you come from? Did you come from a village that was on a lake, and your father was maybe a fisherman? Then you can swim this river. Otherwise, you don't know how to swim. And then that's kind of awakening. Hopefully, it's an awakening something in the player where they say, "Oh, I can get this secondary skill based off my background. I can be a smith. I can be, I can ride horses. I can do all this other stuff depending on my background. And if something's coming to them that they're actually benefiting from, then they're going to be more likely to dive in to create a background than not." So that's kind of what I try to do now. If I'm at a table with a bunch of people who don't want to do it, I encourage them with the secondary skill type approach, so that you do something, you're going to get something back that's going to come out once in a while, and it's not unbalancing. I mean, if a character knows how to swim, it's not going to wreck your game. It shouldn't, and really they should know how to swim because they're going to drown if they don't. There's rivers everywhere, but it's just the secondary. What I do there, El's Dragon, is I bring in the secondary adventure skills and try to encourage it in that direction. It needs to be at least 2 paragraphs or so. I won't read it. I come up with a little format of what. Now that's a good idea. Less than 2, not at least, but less than 2. Yeah. I don't want to read 5, 6, 10 pages of stuff. I really don't. If it's really well written, that's something. But even then, I'm going to read it later. Late at night or something. GM stand. Yeah, we probably should have gone with GM instead of Castle Keeper, but we didn't 20 years ago or whatever. Game Master doesn't hit the same as it. Yeah, it really doesn't. None of them do. Castle Keeper's cool, but DCC games very frequently have no background other than the prior occupations. Yeah, but DCC is built a little different because you start. That has a high fatality rate at first level, right? That's built into the mechanics of the game. I remember Joe telling me about that. It's kind of built the way we used to play back in the 80s, where you just make a bunch of characters, and hopefully at the end of the night somebody lived. Okay, I accidentally put it toward another product. Please try again. Okay, so do the thing again with the download. Are hard with the use of language, and if PC enter a region where they do not speak the local. I say, are you hard with the use of language? Yes, I am. I bring culture into it a lot, and if now in the World of Air it's a little different because many people speak the Vulgate. But yeah, I'll bring language to the table in a heartbeat, because then it makes it, and it's just another challenge that they've got to overcome. That's, yeah, no. I'm a huge fan of language, dress, culture, all of that stuff, and language is crazy, crazy important. DCC games very frequently have no survivors. Yeah. It's designed that way. Worse, you make 7 pages of background for a character that died. That's the worst stuff, because then you've got a very frustrated player. Steve, I want to cleave Chenault. There you go. I have 2. Without backgrounds, you have to find another way to reveal a character. For me, a dungeon delves straight off. How do the characters work together? Can't really roleplay unless you give them something. That's true. The code worked correctly. Excellent. That's what happened to the guy that gave me 7 pages. He just up and died. A lot of people in my age like to write obscenely long backstories at the first level with the expectation the GM will read it. I think this comes from the assumption that their character is the main character of the world and will not die in the course of the play. It's just a bad idea. We need to apparently do a whole player's tricks of the trade on what not to do as a player with your background. I actually wrote that note down to do one, to discuss how to do backgrounds and contain them and expand them later. Because you really don't want to show up. And this sounds horrible, but you don't want to color the GM's idea about killing you. They might feel like if you showed up with 7 pages of background material that they can't kill you. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to wreck all of that information you put into it. And on the surface, that sounds great. I just gave my character a way to avoid death. That's not at all what that means. What that means is the game is now going to be tailored somewhat. It's not going to be as fun because the risk is going to be taken out of it. It's not going to be as fun because there's not going to be as much chance here and there. Without the risk of death, what's the point? So it's just not. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Just wait till your 3rd session, maybe 2nd if it's going really well. Wait 3rd or 4th session, preferably until your 2nd level, until you have enough hit points to survive an orc's cleaving blow. But what's the culture now? Nobody sees anything wrong with that. Well, my online orientation is starting. I'll catch you later, Dark Light. Thanks for joining us. I'm the bad guy for saying I'm not reading all this. I don't. It's hard. I kind of split the difference. There you go. So the last player trick of the trade to help a GM, and this is crazy important. When you're running a game, when the guy or gal running the game, things change constantly. They got to shift gears. You do things that you do things they didn't plan for. You go this direction or that direction or whatever the hell it is. And GMs are constantly having to kind of retool what they're doing. It's a continuous effort throughout the game. Now, I'm not martyring the GM. That's their job, right? That's what they're supposed to do. So that's a good thing. But you can help that a little bit by role playing. Take this background, take these abilities, take all of this stuff that we've been talking about, and role play it out a little bit. Even if you got to tell the GM to be quiet for a minute. GM, quit. We don't quit. We're going to role play this out. Quit describing stuff. We're going to role play this out, and then role play it out on the table. It takes 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever it is. And you don't have to actually role play it. You don't have to be in character. You can just discuss what you're going to do next, or what you want to do, or what the goal is, or whatever. But what that does is it gives an intermission essentially for the GM. The GM can take a breath. They can kind of think about what's coming next. They can think about what wasn't done or what needs to be done. They can retool their thought, and they don't really have to act in the moment continually. The problem with constantly reacting to what's going on at the table from the screen side is the GMs are constantly having to adjust, and it gets exhausting after a while. So give them a breather and do a little bit of role playing. Throw them out. They don't get to participate. Your characters are the one deciding this stuff. If they don't have an NPC in it, they can't say anything. It's your characters, your group. Don't you want? So do a little bit of role playing 2 or 3 times a session, just to give the GM a moment to catch his or her breath, so that they can shift into whatever's coming next. And like I said, you don't have to do the whole. You don't have to be in character and in voice and all that stuff. You're just meshing out what's coming next. Let's see. There's some comments going on in here I missed. I'll write it, assuming the GM may not read it. It's for me as much for the game. Well, that's actually, Barry, that's a good idea. Maybe write your big background, but don't show it to anybody until you survived, and then feed it. Just like the GMs, I've talked about, GMs don't need to dump a setting on top of a bunch of players. It's not a good idea. They're not going to remember most of it, and it's going to exhaust them after 45 minutes of you jibber-jabbering. The same goes for players. If you've got a long background, if you've developed all this stuff, don't dump it on everybody. role play it into the game. Bring it to the table, bits and pieces at a time, so over time it kind of fleshes out, like you do with any of your friends. When you meet someone new, you don't know everything about them. 2 years later, you're still finding out strange things about these people, because people are weird. Let's see, right, 2 minutes remaining, our final 1 minute. Yeah, I think we officially went over. That's the nice thing about using an Adventurers Guild quest on the wall. Yep. I don't have my players really invest unless they want to in the character until they make it to 3rd level. Then we look at minis, more in-depth background. That's a good, I'll usually about 2nd level. 3rd level's good too because they've got enough hit points to survive. The beauty of leaning hard into language is that it can alleviate some of the burden of what the bad guys are saying in combat. If no one speaks ogre, you just tell the players the ogres are shouting in some guttural language and they can't understand. Yeah, absolutely. I bring that to the table a lot. You can't speak hobgoblin, you just can't. So you don't know what they're saying. And that's where wizards start to kind of branch out using spells like comprehend languages and whatnot that can make. That's where you turn, if you take something like languages and make it all universal, then you've kind of wrecked abilities of some of the players and characters. And it's just a good idea. I've got to go. I have a date with Marlith. There you go. Yeah, it's about time to wind down. We are a little bit over. Like usual, ring of comprehend languages. Adventurers Guilds are really lame, in my opinion. Why would they party bother with heroics when there's an entire fleet of heroic adventurers in an organized guild with knights and contracts just chomping at the bit? It just kind of depends on how big it is. Why on earth would anyone do this? I don't think King Cother liked that idea, Peter. There you go. But at any rate, so we're going to revisit. We're going to actually visit it maybe next week. I haven't decided yet if we're going to keep doing the players' tricks to help the GM. But we're definitely going to revisit this subject again in the future and just kind of expound on things players can do to help us all drive the table forward. In the meantime, we're done for the day, but I want to thank everybody for the follows, and please join us next week. We've got shows. I'll be hosting a show every day next week, 2 days, 2 shows a day sometimes. Join us. We'll be running some game, a game on Friday. But we're going to do Ask Me Anything, Gems, Tricks of the Trade, discussing movies and TV shows, World Anvil, all kinds of stuff. So please join us next week. Check the schedule out. It should be posted. If not, it'll be up all over social media and on our homepage, www.trollhorton.com. And if you haven't, check us out on TikTok. Davis and I are heading over there. We're doing a little TikTok stuff, trying to figure out that side of the social universe. And don't forget Patreon, blah, blah, blah. There's just so much stuff. Anyways, thanks you all for joining us for GM's Tricks of the Trade. Sure appreciate it. It was a great conversation today. And we will see you... This is Thursday. We will see you Monday. All right, everybody. Enjoy. Have a great evening and have a wonderful week.